black folks turned out in New York for Thompson like they did for Obama, Thompson would have beaten Bloomberg.
Absolutely. So we have to have a responsibility. And if we're honest, the issues that we complain about the most are the ones that are affected by local races.
Schools, that's one thing, but also jobs locally. And Michael, look, you cover economics, and that's what amazes me when folks don't pay attention to those local races.
I don't know if he's losing credibility. I think they just have to double back and get back in front of this, because at the end of the day, we always knew this was complex legislation. I think most of us that were sophisticated enough knew that it wasn't going to be for every American. It was for a certain kind of American that couldn't afford or wasn't covered. And I think the messaging needs to go back to who this is actually for, how they get it, and who it's not for. And if they can message that better than they have thus far, I think the credibility is still there.
Well, I know you want to respond. I got
benefit of
Jeff?
Obamacare.
Yeah, but many of them weren't, and too many of them weren't, and there were still too many elderly people that could not afford prescription drugs. There are too many college students that I'm talking to on a regular basis
I agree with that.
were not covered. People like my father, who just passed in May, who with a pre-existing condition wouldn't have been able to be covered. None of those things are being covered within states. And so this did address the crisis. I don't think anybody expected this piece of legislation to be perfect. And it has a number of challenges to it. But enacting the Affordable Care Act still began to address in a substantive way what no other policy previously did. And so the question now is, how do we fix it? Right. How do we move it in a place and evolve it in a place where it gets better, not begin to talk about how it hasn't done anything and hasn't addressed the crisis?
No, every time you have to back up and re-explain and walk people through again,
precisely,
you're in a problem.
The credibility is in the stories. And so what this White House has not done is it hasn't allowed American people who have benefited from Obamacare to be the message. You've got to begin talking to the families.
That's a political ad. That's not a message.
Whether it's a political ad or not, it's the truth.
I will say this.
I know families who have benefited from it. That's not a political ad. That's people's lives that have been saved.
And I'll say this here, Deborah, one of the best people who came to messaging, Michael Deaver, Ronald Reagan, and guess what? He understood messaging. He understood stories. Jeff, you were talking about it as well.
Yeah, I know in the last 3 years, friends of mine, mostly men, either in their late 30s or early 40s, who have all had mini strokes. And so, Doc, I mean, some of this is about these lifestyles we live where we're not eating right, we're stressed to an unbelievable degree. And that stress is an incredible risk factor as well, right?
Right. Stress actually can be a risk factor for stroke.
Laughing at that one. Gaming is athletic.
I don't want to get too deep on it, but I think what's happening is you got a lot of men and boys who, because they can't do things in their real life, jump into a virtual one.
Ooh.
Wait, let me be clear. I think that's the difference between a recreational player and somebody that gets lost in it. And so there's a lot of brothers that are recreational players, I think, for the reasons that both CJ and Joseph talked about. But there's a whole lot of cats getting lost in video games because they're not happy with their real lives.
CJ,
I went to the mall the other day.
Real quick, I got a bunch of people on the phone lines.
Bought Madden 25 and played it with my son. And we played a couple of games this weekend. I enjoy playing games. If you work at Google or Microsoft, they got games around, so when you need to unplug, you can play. There's a difference between that. There's a difference between brothers like these on the phone that are making money off it and who I think the bulk of the population that we're talking about is not making money off of it. They're becoming more, they're unproductive versus productive. And that's the issue.
Hold on, CJ
We're not talking about watching movies.
CJ and Joseph, hold on one second. I got people on the phone lines. I want to go to, and they have no life.
But to those brothers' points, there is a great economic opportunity. And if we were having more of these brothers that play games, design them,
there you go,
and more brothers that play games, create gaming companies, then it would be a different conversation.
I spoke to the black data processors and also NSBE. If you go to the National Society of Black Engineers,
to do it, anything that you do it responsibly
and have some balance, because there are some great, there's some great multi-sex games that are fun. Like we bowl, we do the Wii bowling with the family. There's other things that you can bring your wife or your girlfriend in with. You know, make it.
Do that. Hey, play the Wii. All right, folks. Thanks to everybody for being with us. Thank you for all watching. Go to TV1.tv. Also, news.